Greetings dear friends, Dragon here once again. If it is your first time stumbling onto my little channel, then do please consider clicking that red button. Back with another look at the Arrow Shawscope box set. Today we're getting into disc number 5, or disc number E in the review discs. Another double feature, this time round 2 exceptional movies from my favourite Shaw's director, from Lau Kar Leung. We get the incredible Challenge of the Masters and Executioners from Shaolin. Now if you've been paying attention, I've already done reviews for King Boxer from Shangtung, our other double, 5 Shaolin Masters and Shaolin Temple, and the Mighty Peking Man. All those are already up on the channel. Please check them out if you haven't already. But today is going to be all about the first 2 directorial films featured on the set by, like I say, by my favourite Shaw Brothers director and one of my favourite actor-directors of all time, the incredibly mighty Lau Kar Leung. And we get Challenge of the Masters and we get Executioners from Shaolin. 2 amazing, fantastic movies. Not his first at Shaw's. That would be The Spiritual Boxer from 1975. You will see an awful lot of the same cast across these 3 films. Lau Kar Leung had a regular troupe of actors that he would routinely use. Spiritual Boxer was made in Taiwan and featured Wong Yu as a central character, but the wonderful Challenge of the Masters would be the first time that his adopted brother, Gordon Liu, aka Lau Kar Fei, would step into the leading man role. So we'll cover these in order of when they came out. Challenge of the Masters was 1976, Executioners from Shaolin was 1977, so we shall start with the wonderful Challenge of the Masters. Many of you may or may not already know, but this is a Wong Fei Hung movie. The character of Wong Fei Hung has appeared in so many different movies over the years, I think over 100 at this point. Many of these starring the wonderful Quan Tai King, and a lot of the old black and white movies, which we will get to a little bit more later. And then we saw Jackie Chan playing the role 2 times in Drunken Master 2. We saw Jet Li playing the role in the Once Upon a Time in China films. Wong Fei Hung, not a fictional character, a real-life martial artist with a pretty incredible lineage, going right the way back to the Shaolin Temple. That lineage would carry on to the director, to Lau Kar Leung, who, if we look at the actual order of things, going back to the Shaolin days, so the Grand Master at the Shaolin Temple, Jo Sim Si Sin, taught Hong He Gun, who taught Lak Ah Choi, who taught Wong Kei Ying, one of the 10 Tigers of Canton and the father of Wong Fei Hung. Wong Fei Hung then taught Lam Sai Wing, aka Butcher Lam, a character that Sammo Hung plays in The Magnificent Butcher. Lam Sai Wing taught Lau Charm, the father of Lau Kar Leung and Lau Kar Wing, and the adopted father of Lau Kar Fei. You can trace back Lau Kar Leung's legacy really right back to the original real-life Wong Fei Hung and beyond, and all really centered around the specific martial art style of the Hung Gar Fist, which we will look at a little bit more when we speak about Executioners from Shaolin. But really this was one of the first 2 times that Gordon Liu would play the character of Wong Fei Hung. He would revisit the role in the early 80s in Lau Kar Leung's other fantastic movie, The Martial Club, which is coming, I believe, next year at some point from 88 Films. We're going to see a Blu-ray release of that, which is exciting indeed. It's a wonderful, very different look at Wong Fei Hung. In both cases, he plays a very different version of Wong Fei Hung than we would see Jackie Chan play a couple of years after Challenge of the Masters in Drunken Master. He's still a little bit wet around the ears, quite fresh-faced, but nowhere near as rambunctious and as kind of troublesome as the kind of more comedic version that Jackie Chan would play in Drunken Master. But it's a pretty exceptional version of the Wong Fei Hung story, and maybe more historically accurate, hard to say. Certainly it's much more concerned with the actual martial arts that were used by Wong Fei Hung, really. So the Hung Gar Fist plays a huge central role in this. We get an incredible supporting cast, rounded out mostly by Chen Kuan Tai, who's playing the master Lak Ah Choi, who taught Wong Fei Hung's own father, Wong Kai Ying, and in this movie teaches the young Wong Fei Hung. So our story really is kind of centered around the fact that Wong Fei Hung at this point knows no martial arts, is getting a little bit of grief from some local street gangs, is desperately kind of trying to get involved, trying to learn, but his father is resistant, and most of his father's pupils, because his father does run a kung fu school, don't really want to get involved with him, don't want to fight with him because they don't want to get in trouble with his dad. But after he falls foul of a rival gang who are working in conjunction with Lau Kar Leung himself, acting in the movie too as a bit of a villainous character, who's teaching them some dirty tricks. After he gets hurt quite badly by them, another pupil of Lak Ah Choi, played by Lau Kar Wing, takes pity on him and speaks to his master on his behalf, and the master agrees to start teaching the young Wong Fei Hung, takes him off into the wilderness for 2 years to teach him martial arts, and he returns wiser, more noble, and more able to do the right thing. And there's a kind of undercurrent of a sort of sporting event that's not one that I'm that familiar with, where they set off fireworks and different rival schools try and catch the fireworks and then fight their way back to a kind of a podium or a temple to place the fireworks they've recovered, and the more fireworks you get, the higher prominence your kung fu school will have. I think that's the basic setup of it, but it works really quite nicely. It's a nicer kind of example of a sort of sporty element than we would see in Jackie Chan's Dragon Lord, which I never kind of fully got on with. That was a bit more hacky sack based, but certainly the kind of undercurrent of that works really well. You kind of see it at the beginning of the film, and you see it towards the end of the film when Wong Fei Hung comes back as a more skilled martial artist. At the beginning, he was kind of pretty much just getting in the way. So yeah, some wonderful training sequences. Really exceptional to see Chen Kuan Tai and Gordon Liu going one-to-one together as he's trained up. Some spectacular weapons work, some spectacular pole work. Really just a glorious movie. I think for his second feature at Shaw Brothers, you can see the enormous progression between the spiritual boxer and Challenge of the Masters in terms of his directorial skills. It's a much more sophisticated movie. It's working on a lot more levels, and it's great seeing Gordon Liu in his first proper starring appearance. We did previously see him with a small part in 5 Shaolin Masters, which is kind of, I think, his first appearance in a Shaw Brothers movie, because he briefly joined the Changche Film Company. But this is really kind of him back working with his adopted brother, who knew how to kind of really celebrate his skills and encouraged him as an actor immensely, and you can really see him coming into his own. So he carries the film pretty effectively. He's a great leading man here. He would go on to bigger and better things. Obviously, we were yet a couple of years away from him having his big star turn in the 36th Chamber of Shaolin, and starting the long progression of him having a shaved head. You will see him with hair here. It might be freaky for some of you who only know him as the Master Killer, but yeah, wonderful, absolutely fantastic, really, really good fun movie. Rest of our cast, we get Lilly Li in a small supporting part. We get the star of the spiritual boxer, Wong Yu is there as another member of the school that Wong Fei Hung is attached to. On the villain side, of course, we get Fung Har Kon, my own favourite, and Ching Tao, who we saw pretty spectacularly when we were looking previously at Disciples of Shaolin not so long ago. And we also, as I say, get Lau Kar Leung, the director himself, as a pretty villainous, kind of metalled toad bad guy who is in hiding in the area where this film takes place, and is being hunted down by a detective played by Lau Kar Leung. So there's a great real life brothers fight between Lau Kar Leung and Lau Kar Leung in the forest, which is pretty great. I don't want to spoil too much more of the story than that. I suspect if you're watching this, you've already seen the film, so we'll jump on it a little bit and speak about the actual disc, how the transfers look in, what the extras are like. But really, if it's a movie that you don't know, that's about as much as I want to tell you. You will thoroughly enjoy seeing Gordon Liu play Wong Fei Hung. If it's a movie that you do know, then you want to know how it looks. It's an enormous step up onto the Blu-ray. I had the old IVL DVD, and really it's an enormous jump. The quality of the remaster and the transfer that's been put onto the Blu-ray set is wonderful. It looks glorious, better than I've ever seen the movie looking before. We get English and Chinese audio options. English dub at this era of Shaw's movies was pretty good fun, but I usually always opt for the original audio. This is Cantonese rather than Mandarin. Most of Lau Kar Leung's movies were, because he was from that area himself, though, as we've often pointed out, all these films were shot silent, and then all of the audio was overdubbed after the fact. But most of his movies generally at that point in time were recorded in Cantonese first and foremost when they were putting the dubs out, and they're playing to his home crowd. Extras wise, there are a couple of things on the Blu-ray that cover both movies, so that they kind of refer back to Challenge of the Masters and Executioners from Shaolin. Most notably from that side is the Tony Rayns interview. Tony Rayns has done a kind of feature specifically dedicated to speak about Lau Kar Leung, about the legacy, about the lineage that he had and his start in the industry. And runs for about 28 minutes and is fantastic. It's worth pointing out there's a much longer feature that Tony Rayns produced, not for this Arrow box set, but I think for a Hong Kong Film Festival, which I'm going to leave a link down to below, which is worth checking out if you want some more info, where he spent about an hour or so speaking about the career of Lau Kar Leung, which is fantastic, highly recommended. But he does a really good job of summarising some of the same bullet points, and also speaking specifically about these two movies in the one that we get on the Arrow disc. So yeah, it's always a treat getting Tony Rayns. This one is no exception. One of the things that Tony Rayns spends quite a bit of time speaking about is Lau Kar Leung's introduction into the movie industry, how he kind of got his start, because his own father, Lau Charm, was also a fight choreographer, and the very young Lau Kar Leung can be seen in quite a lot of the old black and white Wong Fei Hung movies. He was there as a stunt coordinator and also as an extra, as an actor. Quite hard to track down these movies now. I'll show you a couple of little clips as I'm speaking about this little section, but it's great hearing Tony Rayns place that in context and kind of really get more of an understanding as to why, when he got his chance to start directing movies himself, he returned to the legacy and the story of Wong Fei Hung, because he had such a personal connection to it. And then we dive once more into the treasure trove of absolute pure gold that is the Frederic Ambrosine Library and Archives. And he gives us an interview with Gordon Liu from 2002. It runs for about 20 minutes and is just a gem. It's incredible hearing Gordon Liu speaking about his own kind of experience with starting off acting and what it was like for him working with his adopted brother. And really, he speaks a little bit about these movies, intercut with some clips from the films that he's talking about. And he goes right the way up to speaking about his time working with Quentin Tarantino. It's an absolute delight, really. I can't get enough of seeing Gordon Liu speak. Comes across really humbly, really noble, and just as a really, really nice guy. It looks like it was a wonderful experience to get a chance to sit down with him. I would love to speak to Frederic about that experience because I'm sure it was pretty exceptional. So yeah, that's the main interview as far as the Challenge of the Masters side. And then we also get a textless version of the opening credits, which might be a little bit confusing given that the opening credits has text in a really interesting way. There's an awful lot of characters which I think they've cut out and are hanging from the ceiling that you see Gordon Liu and Chen Kuan Tai kind of doing a various sort of series of forms around, which looks really cool actually. It kind of still holds up. This really stark white background and just the two of them and these hanging black letters. But you still see those letters, but you don't get the actual overlay text of telling you the kind of character and the actor names and things. So it's nice kind of seeing that little version here. You can focus a lot more on the forms that they're doing. We also get 5 trailers and we get another excellent photo gallery, a little bit shorter than the one that we saw on Mighty Peking Man. It's about 29 slides long on the Challenge of the Masters side, but overall a really good package. I think the Tony Rayns interview, like I say, covers both. Would have loved to have a commentary track. Unfortunately, that was not to be for this particular film, but as it stands, really nice little selection of extras, and the film has never ever looked better. So jumping over to The Wonderful Executioners from Shaolin from 1977. While we're talking about extras, we'll just carry on. So again, sticking with the Frederic Ambrosine Library, we get a second part of his interview with Chen Kuan Tai. This is from about 2007, I believe, when he's speaking alongside Vincent C, the actor. This one runs for about 17 minutes and again covers a little bit about this film and also a little bit about his career at that point and some of the other movies that he worked on after that fact. These have all been a treat. I could listen to Chen Kuan Tai talk all day. He's really, really engaging. And again, absolutely fantastic interview. A huge, enormous virtual internet thank you to Frederic Ambrosine for providing so many hours of spectacular content for the set, really. These have been just a joy to kind of go back through. I never thought I would get a chance to see interviews with these actors, really, and it's a massive treat. I know quite a few of these are from quite a long time ago, so you're talking like 15, in some cases almost 20 years ago, but it doesn't change the fact that it's just wonderful getting a chance to hear them speak about their actual experiences. You can tell they're all slightly amused at how much Western interest there was in these movies, so they're always just really charming and just seem to be really grateful to be spoken to about their legacy and body of work. It's great, absolutely fantastic. So the interview with Chen Kuan Tai is no exception to this. It's really, really very wonderful. We also again get a slideshow, 22 slides long in this case, and 4 trailers, mostly all Hong Kong trailers, 2 US trailers and a reissue trailer in the case of Executioners. And Executioners from Shaolin, many of you may or may not know, but this was the first time that Lau Kar Leung would look at the character of Pei Mei. We see him here, played by Lilly Li. Not our first time speaking about Lilly. He was obviously the star of King Boxer, the very first film on the set, but great seeing him in a villain role. He's really very, very wonderful as the white-eyebrowed priest. He would return to the role a couple of years later in the early 80s in his own directorial film, Clan of the White Lotus, aka Fist of the White Lotus, which is kind of almost like a loose reimagining of Executioners of Shaolin, but you could argue maybe not quite as charming. A little bit more focused on the martial arts. Gordon Liu has a much larger part in Clan of the White Lotus, where he has really an extended cameo in Executioner from Shaolin. This one already available from 88 Films and is an incredible disc. Track this down if you don't already. As we're going along, really, the Arrow Shawscope box is proving to be a wonderful cornerstone or building block that you could build a great Shaw Brothers Blu-ray collection around, and 88 Films are doing an amazing job already, before the Shawscope box set came around, of providing kind of really good kind of cornerstone or flagpole releases that you can really dot around and supplement the ones that you're going to get on the Shawscope set. And definitely that is true of Clan of the White Lotus in relation to Executioners from Shaolin. These two work really very, very well together. But getting back to Executioners, so again we follow a real life character. In this instance it's the father of the Hung Gar style. It is Hung Hae-gun, played by Chen Kuan Tai, who is on the run after the burning of the Shaolin Temple. We start again with a wonderful opening title sequence with a small kind of uncredited cameo by Lee Hoi-san playing the Shaolin abbot, going up against the fallen priest going up against Pei Mei, who kind of overcomes him, beats him at the beginning of the sacking. It's all filmed in this kind of glorious sort of red tone, which I think is meant to symbolise the burning of the temple that was going on at that point in time. And then we pick up the actual film with most of the disciples on the run, and we see Chen Kuan Tai's character just initially learning of the fact that his master has been killed by Pei Mei, desperately wanting to go and take revenge, but is stopped by a young Gordon Liu, who kind of tells him it's not worth it at the moment, that they will get their revenge in time, but for now it's more important to stay alive. So they flee. Gordon Liu gets injured very early on. He gets shot through the leg with an arrow, and so he stays behind to try and basically give them a chance to make a break for freedom. Has a pretty heroic final last act, fighting against the Manchus. Once again, we see the incredible Qing Tao and Fong Ha Kon as villains. I think there's a small, quick blink and you'll miss him cameo from a very, very young Sao Ho, I think decked out in a pink robe, who I'm sure I see as part of the Manchu men. But we certainly get to see Gordon Liu holding them off and stopping them from kind of chasing on after Chen Kuan Tai's character. So they managed to effectively make a break, take solace on, or take refuge on the red ships, which they would use as a means of travelling sort of in disguise or incognito as a group of, or travelling kind of opera troupe. And I believe the red ships were used in that capacity. So the kind of the uprising against the Manchus would travel that way, use the waterways to kind of get around China and to kind of try and spread the word of the resistance. So as he is travelling around with his fellow disciples on the red ships, they stop at a small town, I believe it's probably meant to be Guangzhou, and encounter Lilly Li's character. She is a street performer, or a street martial artist, basically. So she's doing martial arts displays of her crane technique. She's playing a character called Fang Yongchun, and she first encounters Chen Kuan Tai after she beats up a few of his guys pretty effectively with her crane fist, and Chen Kuan Tai steps up to challenge her skills with his tiger claw. There's a lot of tiger claw in this movie. And so the two of them meet, and after a kind of a little bit of a good-natured kung fu spar, kind of start spending more time with each other, fall in love, get married, and have a kid who's played by Wong Yu, who we saw as being the star in The Spiritual Boxer, and would go on to be really have his best starring role in my eyes in the wonderful Dirty Hole, which is also on the set. We'll get to that in a couple of videos time. So our little family of three are living quite quietly, and the whole time Chen Kuan Tai is not losing sight of the fact that he desperately wants to take revenge, and so he's training incessantly with his tiger claw style. His wife is very keen for him to try and learn his crane technique, but he refuses, so she's mostly focused on training their son, Wong Ding, who initially is played by a young child actor, but after time gets played by Wong Yu after he gets a bit older. And so she's trained him in the crane style. He has not learned anything really from his father. His father's single-mindedly, solely focused on learning tiger style to go and battle against Pei Mei, which he tries unsuccessfully, but manages to escape. After kind of failing to kind of get everywhere, goes back, trains even harder, and then his intention is to try and return, which he does with pretty ill-fated results, and so it's left to his son to try and kind of pick up the mantle of taking revenge, which he is able to do by merging the different techniques, his mother's crane style and this sort of loose understanding that he has of tiger style, which he picks up from a manual. So he kind of goes off to try and face the dreaded Pei Mei, and that's ultimately kind of how the film builds to a climax. And that's about as much as I will say. Some incredible training sequences here. There's a really wonderful kind of like bronze training figure filled with acupuncture balls, are balls representing acupuncture points, which I've never really kind of seen before, which is very, very cool. There's a whole kind of undercurrent about Pei Mei possibly being kind of weak, because he's largely, Pei Mei is a bit of a superhero, or super villain, I guess, where he's largely invulnerable or invincible, depending on which hour of the day it is. So there's only certain hours of the day when his weak spot might be vulnerable, but he's trained himself to shift it around his body. All gets a little bit convoluted, but it's pretty cool. So they're having to train in different styles to try and kind of work out how to hit him in certain ways to have a result. And so yeah, you see this wonderful kind of bronze big training figure that both Chen Kuan Tai and Wong Yu will use as a part of their studying. Tiny little cameo by Lau Kar Leung as one of the men or the henchmen of the villainous Pei Mei. But mostly really it's a kind of a three-pronged movie. So the bulk of the film you spend time with Chen Kuan Tai, with the spectacular Lilly Li, who's really wonderful in this movie, and with their son, with Wong Yu. There's a great little moment of kung fu marriage on the wedding night of Chen Kuan Tai and Lilly Li that I don't want to spoil for you if you haven't seen, but really good fun. And Lilly Li is very captivating, very strong, very beautiful, and really very funny in this movie. Everyone kind of puts in pretty great performances. And again, quite a massive step up in terms of directorial skills between 1976's Challenge of the Masters and 1977's Executioners from Shaolin. Lau Kar Leung getting ever more sophisticated with some of his cinematic techniques, and really it's wonderfully directed, wonderfully put together. Great mix of some outside location shots and a lot of interiors, but just looks glorious. A transfer that's on the set looks absolutely wonderful. I don't think I've ever seen the film looking so good, and it's a film that I know very, very well. We get the fantastic classic English dub as sampled by the Wu-Tang Clan. You can hear the Tiger Style at the beginning of Wu-Tang Clan Ain't None to Fuck With. They've ripped off a whole bunch, or paid homage by taking a whole bunch of samples from different Shaw Brothers movies over the years, but this is certainly kind of one of the most famous ones that they lifted. They lifted it from the English dub, which you get on here. You also obviously get the Chinese audio, which I think again is Cantonese. Although unfortunately we get no commentary track for Executioners from Shaolin on the set either, I would point you at this stage to the wonderful Heroes 3 podcast from my friend Carlos and his two buddies, which is a great, really fantastic deep dive podcast looking at all aspects of Asian cinema, and they do a wonderful, really great episode on Executioners from Shaolin. Almost you could run this as a commentary alongside the film. They wouldn't quite sync up because they're not speaking about scene-specific stuff, but they do a really great summary of talking about the movie as a whole. Highly recommended. I will leave a link down to that below. That is pretty much it for your two movies on disc number 5. Both are absolutely fantastic. I'm very happy that it's not the last two Lau Kar Leung directed movies that we get on the set. The next two are even better than this two. Look forward for Dirty Ho and Heroes of the East, which will be our last film of the set. We'll get there in time, but we still have the incredible Chinatown Kid back to Chang-Chi for the next one, and sticking with Chang-Chi for Five Deadly Venoms and Crippled Avengers, our two main Venom Mob movies that are on the set. So we have those to come. So basically after this we've got three movie discs left, and then the 2 soundtrack discs. So I hope you will join me as we get into those in due course. But thank you very much for watching this. I think that is about everything that I have to tell you, other than to say both of these movies highly recommended on a set that I could not recommend more. So excited. We're getting very close now, just a couple of weeks away. I know that the release date was pushed back, which is disappointing to many of you, I know, but I absolutely guarantee you it is well worth the wait. For anyone who can't wait, I believe the films are all now up on the Arrow player, which if you don't have access to and you have Amazon Prime, you might be able to get a potential free trial to the Arrow player. Or I don't think it's that expensive to sign up for a month, but I would say hang on for the box set. Just hang on, and then you'll get a chance to check out the films properly all in one go. But certainly all the films and all the extras already up on the Arrow player at the time of me making this. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you on the next one. Take care.